Hello humans, hello humans. It's Thursday, the 5th of September, 11:46 in the AM. Got one of those clocks over here. I've got my recording equipment set up in the house. I've had to close the blinds because the sun is moving around to the western side, actually more to the south, but it will be hitting this part of the house pretty fierce, as you can see in the lower window area. And it makes the screen just go absolutely gray. In any event, so this is sort of a test it all out video, because I had to relocate everything. All kinds of cables and crap all over, lights and shit. Anyways, so I've got a phrase that comes from a Cathari hymn, and my phrase is universe provides and guides. And there's a lot of verses in it, but it's universe provides and guides my eyes to see, my voice to say, my, how wondrous is each day. And basically they go on in that same theme. And it's a particular kind of litany. Litanies are a particular kind of a ritualized form of personal mind control, if you will. It gives you more focus and it makes your mind concentrate on that as opposed to something else. There's all different kinds of uses for it. And the Catharis had quite a few of them. And they had within their own group, they sort of like institutionalized it, right? It was a key part of how they conducted daily business. Anyway, this is important because universe does provide and guide. We've come to a point where we're getting into a much more active UFO period. This UFO period is upon us now. It appears that Stephen Greer's release of his accumulated database was the forecast release of the underground documentation that had been in the data sets since like 2003 or 4 that would be released. I thought they would actually be papers. I thought it would be the result of these riots and the strife and so on that is going to occur now in this month, and that the data seemed to indicate it would happen last month. Well, here we are, 15 days or so after the Ides of August, so to speak, the dog days, and we're getting into a period of dynamic activity that will be September. We'll remember all of this. All of us will remember this September for a long time because of the stuff that's going to be occurring. And is occurring now, depending on where you live. Anyway, so I had, as a result of a lot of thinking about the UFO issue and the contention between humans, between all of humanity and these aliens, and how we've been involved in this for years and years and years and years, I had been considering various different aspects of that and what humanity might do for each of those particular kinds of aspects, sort of applying game theory to it, examining the nature of it all. And one of the things I came across in my thinking was, it goes back to my youth. And so this is where it's going to get complicated, all right? It's simple, but it's just a lot of simplicity topped on other simplicities, so it becomes complicated to see it all. So I studied and practiced Aikido for 50 years, probably something actually more close to 52. Because I segued out of judo and jiu-jitsu into Aikido over maybe a 2-year period, attending both schools for a while, and then gave up the judo and gave up the jiu-jitsu, and found what I was looking for within Aikido. Now, Within that period of time, for perhaps 40 years out of that 52 years, I was concentrating on one style of Aikido, which is this form called Shin, S-H-I-N, Soitsu. And so there's Shin, a dash, and then Toitsu. And so it was Shin Soitsu Aikido. And Shin Soitsu means body-mind harmony. When you put in Aikido in there, it becomes body-mind-spirit harmony. You can harmonize your body and your mind, but to a great extent, in doing exercises and these approaches that you find in Shin Soitsu. And so it's its own way, right? But you can't really integrate, you can't really blend the spirit in there unless there's this level of contention that you find in the martial arts, unless there is that aspect of it. Risk, etc., right? All of those things come into focus for many different reasons and all the way down into minutia. And so you can get into the hormonal impacts of the risks just in training for memory and for boosting memory and mental capacity to certain levels that wouldn't be achieved otherwise, that allow the spirit to do certain things. So you can get really into it at that level. Now, the reason I'm bringing all this up is that we're going to need people that are practitioners of Shin Soitsu, whether it's any of the forms of it. So there's the art form of Aikido that is the way, and you practice that way as in Shin Soitsu fashion. Now, here's where we're going to get into a little bit of walking in the weeds. Shin Soitsu derives from this guy's work. His name was Nakamura Tempu Sensei. He was born in like 1876, something like that. He fought in the Russo-Japanese War. He was Japanese. He is the founder of what's called Japanese yoga. And so if you want to read about him and his methodology and get into the techniques that I'm going to discuss here, you can probably find it online, a book called Japanese Yoga. I'm certain you can find it on Amazon, both as, matter or as a Kindle. The books will give you, they're not martial arts training books, okay, the Shin Soitsu books. And so, so they're about that aspect of the way and why you would want to do it. Then you can go and apply that aspect to any of the other methods of flowing. Okay, so you could do flower arranging, you could do calligraphy, you could do sand sculpture, you could, repair cars, do any of that in this particular fashion, and you would get the benefits of the Shin Soitsu part. And that's where we're going to be coming up to and where we're going to have a need for this in dealing with our pesky space alien issue. The Shin Soitsu, when you read the Japanese yoga book, and if you go actually read it all and get off your lazy ass and go all through all the pages and read about all of the descriptions of all the exercises and the breathing and the meditation and so on, you get to this realization, a lot of the Jedi powers and stuff in Star Wars are taken from the first third or so, and then the last little bit of the description of the method involved in Shin Soitsu. And here's, to be fair, okay, so this is a very intriguing art form, Shin Soitsu, okay? However it is expressed, whether it's flower arranging or whatever, right? And it is actually, it has great benefit because it allows you to live in real time in a conversation with universe. So you can actually look and see the universe provide for you, and you can watch it do so, and you can also watch it guide you and show you the appropriate ways to examine and respond what it's providing. Okay, so it's a weird kind of an art form. It's intended to provide you with enlightenment as you experience reality. And there's many different kinds of tools you can use within that art form, and I don't want to get diverted into all of this. I do need to stop and say, though, that I can demonstrate aspects of key science. Okay, I can shift my key around these, and do things with my key, and you would find it perceptible. I can use my key as a like a form of like a medical imaging kind of a thing, and find out things that are wrong with people. Right? I do kiatsu, a strange form of healing massage. So I know these things are possible, and I've trained myself over all this time to do it. But way back in the day, way back in the 80s, when I had just started experiencing some of the benefits of Shinshin Soitsu, had been involved in it maybe 8 years or so as an aspect of the Aikido I was taking. So you do all of the Shinshin Soitsu exercises as part of your Aikido Waza. The Aikido Waza are the body training to get the cellular memory, etc., and skill, okay, and that you use before the actual instruction and the exercise of the art. Okay, and anyway, it's a long story. So I was involved in the satellite business, right? I used to love going around and setting up satellite dishes, set them up at taverns and all the hell and gone, and we're talking the big Ranger 21s, the 21 feet diameter Ranger dishes, and a number of the others. I set up for a company that installed, I think, 3 or 4 different varieties. And I loved finding the satellites. You'd go out at night, and they'd have nothing on the TV. It'd be, because they're way out, we're talking about rural taverns and shit that, didn't even have cable or any of that. So they had over-the-air TV to entertain their patrons, which was squat. I mean, you just have no idea unless you lived it. Anyway, I'd go out and I'd tune the satellite dish, and boing, it would just snap right in. And from then on, once I got that first particular satellite transponder in that particular evening based on the time, then from then on it was easy to calculate where the others would be found, and you'd just dial them all in and you'd go away a hero because these guys had actual television. They wanted to give you drinks and all this kind of stuff, but usually you're driving out maybe 40 or 50 miles away from home, so it's not wise to accept. And I wasn't a drinking guy anyway, but I sure did like doing the technical aspect of the satellites. Okay, so I'm doing that. And my father-in-law had a nephew who was in the satellite business as well, back east on the East Coast. And he was a designer, a circuit designer. And he had designed a satellite receiver, actually quite superior satellite receiver, very small. It was quite elegant. And then he did something stupid, but we didn't realize that it was stupid at the time. And he put in reference tuning. Okay, everybody was moving over to digital. Digital was just starting to come on in, and it was really the funky little tubes. A lot of the digital stuff were the tubes. You've never seen those, but there were numbers made out of wires within the tubes, and it would switch the current to make the number appear within this little tube and illuminate whatever the number was. Fascinating technology. Very energy intensive, and all of that broke down and so on. Anyway, so this nephew of my father-in-law made these receivers. They were superior, but we didn't realize that he'd made a marketing error, a business decision error. I was young at the time. It didn't dawn on me until this experience I'm going to tell you about. And he put in reference tuning. Reference tuning is the twist dials you'd see on old style radios. It was superior because he used instead of using the multi-vanes that slipped between each other, he used these two metal discs that had 2 notches in them as frequency tuners, and they were separated, so it was asymmetric. And he had 2 of these, and he took the signal average between the 2 of these to provide the signal. So it was incredibly discriminating. So I won't get into any more technical details. Anyway, so I knew the satellite business. My father-in-law hooked us up. We're talking old-fashioned long-distance telephone calls that would cost us $30 and $40 on handsets, wired phones. And then we go, and this is like the, maybe it was like 83? I don't know, something in there. I'd have to really think about it. And we go to, he arranged the guy in Tennessee, which is where he was making his receivers, needed somebody to rep for him out on the West Coast. I was happy to do it. It was no problem. I sold a bunch of them in the installs that I was doing because I could demonstrate how superior it was in pulling in more stations because of the discriminating nature of these discs inside. And it also was a flat, elegant unit. It was in wood, though. The manufacturer, the guy back in Tennessee, was making them like they were a stereo cabinet, which in the old days used to be really quite the quality chunk of wood. Nowadays, of course, it's a disposable society, so everything is just stamped and put out there. You want the function, not the ambiance of the thing sitting around. Anyway, so we get together on the phone and we make arrangements to go to this satellite TV convention in Las Vegas. And boy, there's a long ass story to get around to it. So we go there. It was just it was my first experience at a large technical convention, and it was amazing. We had a booth there, we were off in one of the ancillary buildings. This was costing him, the guy from Tennessee, an absolute fortune. He wasn't paying me for my time to stand there and sell these things over the course of I think I did it 8 hours a day for 3 days, something like that. And my father-in-law was also doing it, and his father was doing it, and he had a couple of cousins doing it. And so he basically had free, somewhat qualified technical salespeople there. And it was still a tough go. It was still a tough sale because, as I say, everybody wanted digital, and we only had reference. And that was a big eye-opening thing, even though I'd been able to sell the units and had, personal working knowledge of the stuff. Anyway, so I'm there, and I'd been to Vegas as a kid when it was a little patch in the desert. I hadn't been to Vegas as an adult. When I was a kid, my dad would just drive us back and forth from one coast to the other. Vegas was, oh yeah, there it was, just like, oh, there's a cow, that sort of thing, right? I think we'd stop once or twice for food, that sort of thing. Anyway, though, so while I was there, I ran into a guy that I was taking Aikido with. And he introduced me. He was there. I didn't know what was going on at the time. He was there for a Shinshin Soitsu get-together. We can't call it a conference, but it was certainly a meeting. And the Shinshin Soitsu concept has a society associated with it. It's the Shinshin Soitsu Society, right? And somewhere there's a register, my name is on there from my association through these Aikido dojos that were nominally linked to it. None of this is like rigid organization or anything. I didn't even know this conference, this meetup was going on. I run into this guy. It's like, wow, what are you doing here? Blah, 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 blah. Go and sit down. He drank. He had a beer. And this is like midday, but it was in one of those underground places. So you never know, what time of the day it is. And as I recall, I had a cup of tea. But anyway, I'm sitting there talking to him, and he introduces, he was there to meet somebody else. I sat with him, and he introduces me to the guy he was going to meet with, who is from Japan and is associated with the Shinshin Soitsu college or university in Japan. And long story, okay? So we're sitting there, and this is the land of playing cards. And so my friend urged this old Japanese fellow, he's probably in his 70s at that point, to demonstrate this particular thing to me while we were sitting there. And there were playing cards all around, so this is in a casino ancillary little area there. So he goes on over and he gets a playing card. And we're talking just a regular old playing card, right? And has his friend, the guy I had met, ran into there, hold up these two chopsticks. And he held it up like this between his hands hang on a second. I don't want to stab myself with this, but he held up these two chopsticks like this. There we go. Like that. And they were just right next to each other. And they, of course, separated more because they weren't a pen, they were chopsticks. This is from the little Japanese service restaurant that was over there. Food court, that's what it was. Associated sort of in proximity to this casino in this basement thing in Vegas. Anyway, and he takes this playing card and he explains what he's going to do, and you can't believe it when he explains to you what he's going to do, and then he shows you how to do it. Now, I had been practicing these techniques for about 8 years, so once I saw it happen, it was easy to understand what was going on. But he takes the playing card, he has the guy hold the two chopsticks like this. It always works better with this trick if you do it downward. And he takes the playing card by one corner and slices the two chopsticks, and they just fall into two pieces. And then he goes into the mechanism for how that was done. Now, this guy was not particularly a martial artist, okay, the guy who did the chopstick slicing. He showed me afterwards, and thereafter I was able to do it as well. It's a matter of mental focus more than it is physical skill. And I've seen women learn to do it in like 2 or 3 swipes. Even they can do it. So it's not a matter of strength. It's a matter of knowing how to do this, right? Anyway, so Shinshin Soitsu is the way that you learn to interact with and not merely accept, but participate in a conversation more or less with the universe. And so a small, distorted, delusional subset of that is what people call the law of attraction. All right, so you're not having a conversation, you're trying to like shout in to universe's ear, gimme, 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 and you're doing it in a small, tinny voice into a giant ear. You're just, you're wasting all your effort, blah, 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 but you're not really having a conversation, but you're understanding that you can interact with universe and cause things to occur. Okay, so Shinshin Soitsu is a way. So it's Shinshin Soitsu Do, or in my case, Aikido. Okay, because we blended in the spirit in this as well. We have need for people that have this ability to read the force. They have the ability to read and interact and have these conversations with universe. Because I can tell you for absolute certainty that the space aliens, they're doing that. They're interacting with universe at that level. Now, as I say, you can go get the book Japanese Yoga. Probably the vast majority of people that go and download it, because it's probably free out there somewhere, or they buy it on Kindle or whatever, probably the vast majority of them will read a little bit of the intro and then let it sit. They won't be doing the work at the moment. This is one of those things where universe provides and it guides. And sometimes you have to have these thoughts repeatedly before you actually act on them, okay? There has to be some form of an impetus. Now, if you are following Shinshin Soitsu in any of its various forms, then you recognize the impetus of that really quickly. And so you don't have to have universe slap you up in the face with a dead wet fish to get your attention. It sort of clicks, right? Sometimes it's more blatant than others. So I had been contemplating the space aliens, contemplating our issues with contention, and contemplating the tools that we need to involve ourselves in relative to our side of that contention, and had been thinking about Shinshin Soitsu, Aikido, and also up-chain back towards Nakamura, Tempu Sensei. And I'd actually had the privilege of meeting some of his individual students. So he was back, he died in 1868. But I met some of the people that had actually studied with him. And of course, his art was strongest in 68. he's a nice guy because he had this sort of thing that you have at he has this thing at the beginning of the instruction that he says, basically, memorizing the shit I've learned don't mean you understand it. Okay, and so the goal of Shinshin Soitsu is for you to personally have the experience that provides you with that realization and that enlightenment, not to memorize the truths of others. So basically he's saying the truths of others memorized do not precipitate understanding, because understanding goes further than just simply memorization and repetition. Okay, so it's you have to blend it into yourself. Get into this get this stuff. It gets real deep later on, okay? I'm not going to do too much more on this. This was just sort of a test video. But I did need to get some concepts out here so that people could go and look it up and start examining the concepts here and the ideas. Shinshin has lots of tools. So I came to both Zen and Vipassana through early association with the Shinshin Soitsu. Now, you have to understand that Nakamura had tuberculosis, and he wanted it cured. He had money, he had everything, and he wanted his tuberculosis cured. So I have an affinity for Tenpu Sansei Nakamura because he suffered the same kind of stuff that I suffered. So I could go on and do my Aikido stuff, get my body healthy and so on. And just for 30 plus years, now he didn't get that extreme. He found his relief, and he had tuberculosis, coughing up blood, the whole thing. He goes through this process, meets these people, ends up doing some Hindu yoga, which leads him to, and he had degrees up the yin-yang from going to medical colleges in the West, trying to cure his tuberculosis, all of this kind of stuff, right? And he ends up curing it in the Himalayas, in a retreat there, through this particular realization, and you can go read about it. Anyway, so he suffered tuberculosis, near fatal for him. He was wasting away. He was in the final stages of that disease when he left Egypt and was induced by universe to go to through India to the Himalayas and discover and formalize the idea of Shinshin Soitsu, which is basically realization through personal experience. And that's the way you can think about it, right? And so there were certain tools he adopted for his, because he had been exposed to them through, you know, medical colleges and so on. And so this is a unique art. Really, truly, it is a fusion of Western thinking and Eastern thinking that settled in Japan, and includes the roots in India as well as in the medical schools in terms of formalization of, you know, and the rigors of experimentation, annotation of results, examination, statistics, all of that kind of stuff, right? Anyway, so at its core, though, Shinshin Soitsu is learning to listen and converse with the universe. And so here I've been thinking about all this relative to the space aliens and all of that, and I was contacted by a old Aikido buddy that was going through the area, and he was from my first Aikido dojo, and he's a firm member in the Shinshin Soitsu. And I won't get into his personal things, but he came by, he had some just, it's been a long time since I've had gifts, have been able to have gifts, due to my wife's medical condition and stuff, right? And so he brought with him one of my personal addictions, really, and that is this particular brand of Saudi Arabian cardamom tea. It's strong. We had it last night. It was after dinner that he came by and ended up staying up a lot longer than I usually do. So today was a bit on the odd side. But it's just marvelous stuff. There's no outlet over here. They don't sell it on Amazon or that kind of stuff. He just happened to have gone through the area, knew I liked it, and he bought some, when he was in Japan, he bought some aged tea for some other people. I have sources for aged tea here, so he didn't bother to get me any of that. That's lovely stuff too. Anyway, so, but here we are. Here I was thinking about Shinshin Soitsu Aikido, and out of the blue, universe has this guy pop in under these circumstances here. And, and he had just come back through that area of Japan where the university is, where the school is. So it's just a real slap in the face from universe that, oh yeah, maybe you should tell people about this stuff, right? Because it's going to be necessary. This is how you get to be a Jedi, the mental stuff, the mental part of it. If you want the physical part of it, you can get that by combining Shinshin Soitsu with one of the martial arts. And you could do it on your own. You could provide this level of understanding to karate, to, Filipino stick fighting, any of this, right? It's a way, and the mechanisms of the way don't matter. The tools you choose do not matter. It is how you use them and the why and the what you do with it that forms the way. So you can make it out of anything, what's that stuff? The paper arranging. And just like flower arranging, So you could have a guy who was extremely sophisticated and did Shinshin Soitsu balloon animals, and he may be an enlightened master. But you're never going to get any enlightenment out of watching him do those balloon animals or in figuring out how he did them, right? You've got to do it yourself. You can't memorize it. But those people that do this will be very, very, very useful for our interaction with these aliens who, for many different reasons, which I can provide supporting arguments as to why I think this, the space aliens, in my opinion, are certain to use some form of Shinshin Soitsu. And we use many forms of it here. Humans, just by the way, so look at Jean-Claude, right? He's got this, he's got a corral, and he's got a stable full of astrologers and other woo-woo people. And they use, in their own fashion, some small flavor or aspect of Shinshin Soitsu. So the astrologer is now, it would depend. You could just be an astrologer and you're attempting to read the stars. Or you could be an astrologer and you're attempting to achieve a personal level of enlightenment using astrology as a tool. That would be the Shinshin approach, right? The Soitsu approach. The fusion, the blending of mind and body in that endeavor. And that's what provides the sparks of enlightenment here. And then you, as part of your enlightenment in the process, you learn to do things like meditation. And these things train you and your body to pay attention to when universe is talking to you. And this kind of a deal, right? And so we have Jean-Claude, we have Joe, JSNP 4. He does lucid dreaming. Lucid dreaming is also or prophetic dreaming, not necessarily lucid, right? Predictive dreaming. That's what I should say. Predictive dreaming, in that he sets up in his mind a framework, and then the dream comes in, and then he goes through and interprets it, and so on. If you were to do that, and in a sense, he's actually attempting to do the same thing as what is provided with Shinshin Soitsu. But in the art of Shinshin Soitsu, you don't bother with the dreaming part. You don't have to be in any kind of a particular state, right? And so, but you get the real deal because you're actually interacting with universe, and universe is talking to us constantly. One of the basic principles here is that it is impossible for that not to be true. For it it must be certainly true that universe talks to us constantly. And we know this because we exist within universe, within the materium. We were created here. We are constructed of all the same material as the materium, and so on and so on and so on. So at a very non-ontological way, you can say that it must be true even if it's only resonance, okay? Even if only because I have these materials in my body and this kind of thing, and my brain is a particular kind of a quasi-crystal and so on, with these little nanotubes in it and so on, I resonate with universe. And so that's fine. If you don't want to think of universe in an ontological conscious fashion, consciousness communicating with subconsciousness, which is us guys in the meat suits, that's fine. You don't have to think of it that way, but you can certainly see how it would be true at a resonance level. Just as it is quite factual to state that the mind moves the body doesn't move on its own, the finger doesn't write on its own, the eyes don't read on their own. It is all mind that's doing that, and the body is the tool of that. Therefore, you can, from a logical standpoint, you can say what happens in the mind is what moves the body, therefore it happens in the mind first, and therefore, if it's bad in the mind, it'll ultimately end up being bad in the body. And so it helps to get your mind right. Another thing that Shin Soitsu is well known for is getting people out of addictive behavior. Because of the processes that you must go through in acquiring the skills and so on. Go and look up the Japanese yoga and look at the exercises involved in there. Some of them you'll see replicate Hindu exercises to some degree. And then there's all these other different kinds of stuff. Much more dynamic than like Hatha yoga. Thus, the playing cards slicing through chopsticks and that sort of thing. I won't go. People do that at these. I once went to a Shinshin Soitsu mini convention in Seattle. There were maybe 150 people there, and we were all fascinated with this process of seemingly impossible stuff, right? And that's where I saw women do the breaking of the chopsticks with playing cards. And the playing cards don't get damaged. The first time you do it, it's not going to work. You're going to throw that card away. Maybe the second or third time, you'll throw it away as well. And then on the fourth time, you'll suddenly get it, and the card just seems to slip. And the saying is that, the chopstick obligingly separates. So anyway, okay, so I should get on with this. It's been going too long. So the stuff that Joe does, the predictive dreaming, is just a small slice of this. He only does it in that particular state, and he's got to set it all up. Same thing is sort of true of the, and also I don't know that Joe's seeking ultimate enlightenment in that process. Shinshin Soitsu is a way, it's a method of enlightenment. So it does have that. So there is that rigor, that goal. And I was going to say, I don't think that Joe is particularly trying to do that through his dreams. The same thing is true of Dick Allgaier and his remote viewing groups, right? They're not attempting to do remote viewing on their personal history or their interactions with the universe and gain any kind of an interaction, a conversation with universe at that level. But certainly they're talking with universe when they see this stuff in the future and then it appears, right? So all of these things are aspects of universe provides and guides. So it provides you with the dream, and then it guides your interpretation, and you can really fuck it up, right? So there's this learning aspect in all of this. It's my contention that if you do Shinshin Soitsu, the personal waza, that kind of thing, the exercises, the meditation, and so on, that these mental tools, which is primarily all you're working on, even when you're sometimes doing body work, it's only to affect your mind. All of these tools would give you an edge in doing, the other aspects of it. But at some point they'll take it over, and then you'll say, what do I care about the future 2 weeks from now? What do I care about the monetary nature of, Bitcoin or Ethereum or any of that kind of stuff at all, given the fact that the universe is talking to me and it's telling me all this shit. So anyway, it has tendency to subsume all your other concerns. I think that some aspects of what everybody calls Zen craziness, Zen is a tool you can use in Shinshin, and I did so, as is Vipassana. Vipassana is labeled a form of meditation, but really it's more than that, because it uses a meditative hook, and it's the Buddhist approach to self-directed psychoanalysis. Okay, in Zen, you have your awareness taken from your breath, and then you realize that your awareness has been taken from your breath, and you put your awareness back on the breath. You don't examine what took your awareness away. You want to get to the point of no thought. And in this case, no thought is a very valuable state to achieve relative to universe, because thereafter you are able to encounter universe speaking to you. Now, Vipassana can get you to the point of no thought, but it's what's known as the householder's meditation, and it does so from a different viewpoint. They may both take the same amount of time, even though Vipassana is not attempting to get you to a direct point of no thought. It wants you to get there, so to speak, to achieve that goal at some point in the future by consuming your thoughts. So you put your awareness on your breath, you just naturally breathe, and as thoughts come up to take your awareness away, this is Vipassana, and as thoughts come up to take you away from your breathing, you eat them, you grab them, and you say, that's interesting. Why did that arise now? Why am I thinking about that? And you follow it as far as your interest can take you. When you start off on Vipassana and these weird thoughts come up, you'll find that maybe you take minutes pursuing that thought. Maybe it'll worry you the whole day intermittently, right? As you work through this thought, as you eat that thought, that's what it's called in Vipassana. Oh, I'm eating my thoughts. Or consuming them or whatever, right? So, but as you proceed in that, there's less and less and less and less and less layers to the thoughts that are being brought up, and eventually they become so narrow that they're consumed very quickly, and you go back to your awareness in the ever-present now with your breathing. You can only breathe now. I can't breathe 5 minutes ago for this particular moment in history. I can't breathe in the future for this particular moment in my body's existence. So if my body did not have air now, I'm not able to go out and get air 15 minutes from now when it would return or whatever, right? And keep my body alive now. I can only breathe in this ever-present now. And it's called the eternal now, the Nakaima. And so, as you can only breathe in this now, concentrating on your breathing focuses your mind back to this now. So I'm going to let you guys get on with it. I've been going too long. This is a good test video. I'm going to try and work it out so that I can get some view of the ocean here. It's not going to happen in late summer, early fall with the light during these times of the day, but maybe at other times. Anyway, take care. Use the stuff you learn about the Shinshin Soitsu to actually go and try and experience it, right? It's a cult, but there's no cult leader. It's a religion, but it's not really, because it has spiritual components, but there's no religious organization or control or any of that kind of stuff involved there, right? But it is a shared interest in learning to speak to and receive information from universe on a path towards your own personal ultimate enlightenment. So that's it. Anyway, talk to you guys later. I should have a whiteboard here, and then I can write stuff out. We'll see. It should be here in a few days. There we go.